Let's talk Forex strategy. We have Halley from Saxo Capital Markets right here with us. So the euro, what's your euro dollar target?
I think we definitely still head lower. The quantitative easing amount and the program size was larger than the market expected, slightly larger, and also it's still fairly open-ended. Although they said till September 2016, they have said they can continue after that. So I think the market got more than it expected, and euros suffered as a consequence, which I'm sure the ECB is secretly quite happy about.
Yeah, so what is your near-term target? How do you trade the euro against which pair?
It's been fairly orderly, actually. I mean, we're not talking a Swiss National Bank sort of Euro-Swiss event here. I mean, I would expect euro to move to 112 early next week, and then probably down to 110 in the medium term.
Well, is the US happy with a strong dollar?
They've always said for the last 20 years they want a strong dollar. So even when it was getting sold dramatically during the quantitative easing program of their own, they still said we believe in a strong dollar. So I don't think that will change secretly behind the scenes. I'm not quite sure if they're quite so enthusiastic about it if we see the QE programs going on in Japan and in Europe, and commodity currencies falling, maybe some action over on the Asian currency side of things, whether that might nip the nascent recovery in the bud over in the United States. I think you won't hear an end to the strong dollar policy, but you may see some rumblings from the Fed about the US dollar.
Could they actually hold off or normalizing rates mid-year?
That, I think, is the actual most likely effect of what we've just been talking about. So you won't hear anything official, but what you may see is the Federal Reserve changes the language slightly to give a strong pointer to the market that they're actually not looking to raise interest rates as soon as everybody thinks they are.
So how is that going to affect Asian currencies then? Because if you remember previously, when there was hints that America was going to increase interest rates, we suddenly saw so many of the Asian currencies falling because everybody was going off and buying the US dollar. So does that mean that some of the money might come back to Asia
Mini
again?
tantrum, shall we call it?
Tantrum, shall we say. I think actually what people don't realise is that most Asian currencies exist under a fixed currency regime. So over the last 7 years since the global financial crisis, a lot of these emerging markets have been borrowing 0% quantitative easing dollars, and their debt levels are very, very, very high, particularly in the corporate sector. And that was all going to come under a lot of pressure this year because clearly, if the US dollar gets stronger, the exchange rate moves against them, their debt payments get higher. If US interest rates go up, their debt payments go higher. And I was actually quite bearish on Asian currencies and emerging market currencies in general this year. What may come into play now is perhaps a lot of those 0% quantitative easing euros and yen may now be recycled back into the market and replace those cheap US dollar borrowings.
So who is going to be the next to move in this easing party, the race to the bottom?
Yeah, this is the race to the bottom. Well, there's a lot of talk about Australia now. I think actually that the RBA won't be hiking rates, but certainly I think they may move to a softer bias, an easing bias. I think New Zealand is up next week, and they have quite clearly said that they had a tightening bias, and I think that may be going out the door next week.
And what is your top QE trade at this moment in the currency pairs?
In the currency pairs, I think you can't go wrong being short Euro Swiss at the moment. The Swiss National Bank's long an awful lot of euros, and they've got to be sold out at some stage. I think it's probably a trade for the brave right now, but I think definitely Euro Swiss heads lower, and I also think that the New Zealand dollar has got an awful lot of downside into it. So those out of the G10s I think would be my favourite trades.
Wow, so that should keep you quite busy in the coming week.
I think we're going to have a very busy 2015 full stop.